Good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to be with you again this morning for our tech webinar. It's actually the 29th of November, but I fully understand where Lisa is coming from. We've been so busy with our business awards that it seems as though that, yeah, we're already in December. Welcome. Could all our speakers now turn their cameras on? That's brilliant. We're really pleased, as I say, to be with you as part of Hounslow Council's Digital Festival month, which runs every November, and this is its third year of the running. In the past, Mark's been telling me it's been more sort of internal, and this year it's been aimed more for residents, and also they're reaching out to businesses this year, which is great. So I'm really pleased to be holding this webinar as part of the Digital Festival, and thank you to the council for making it happen, and also for our speakers for being with us. So first up is, speaking of the devil, Mark Lumley, Director for Digital and IT for the London Borough of Hounslow. Mark, over to you, please.
Speaking of the devil,
mentioning Mark a lot.
That's the best introduction that I've had for possibly ever. So well, this is the bit where I try and share my screen and fail, but we'll see how we get on there. Hopefully you can see that. Should yes. Just be coming up now. There we go. So let me start. So I'm Mark Lumley. I'm the Director of Digital and IT for the London Borough of Hounslow, and I am really pleased to be here today to talk about just some of the work we've been doing as part of the Digital Festival this month, but also our digital inclusion commitment and our digital strategy. So we've got lots and lots going on across the council and across the borough as well. So as I say, I've been in the council now for 3 years, and we've really tried to think about digital not just as wires and Wi-Fi, but about people and about our communities. And so it's been really important that we've now got our digital inclusion commitment that puts people and puts digital at the centre of lots of the activities of the council, and we really have an ambition not to leave anybody behind. That is really important for us. So we've got a foreword here from the leader of the council, Shantanu Rajwat, just echoing just how important digital is for the lives of our communities and our businesses. It does have a real positive impact on health and well-being, on employment, on skills, on education, and trying to pick that across all those different elements is really important. The digital inclusion commitment was approved in Cabinet this year, and it isn't something that the council is going to do. It is something that the council is going to work with partners, including, I think, local businesses will be fantastic, across the next year, 18 months or so, to really deliver change across the borough. Our vision is for a digitally inclusive borough where everybody has that confidence, the skills and the access to be able to interact online. So there's lots of activities which I'll talk about in a moment, what we're doing around those different areas. Part of it is around our own services as well, making sure that they are as inclusive and easy to use as possible. So there's a huge program of work taking place at the moment around transforming our community experience and making sure our website and services are as efficient and effective as possible. There's lots of intervention and activity that we're doing across the actual borough of Hounslow as well, in terms of making it easier for fibre providers to come into the borough and improve that connectivity. So we're lucky, being a London borough, that we don't have the same rural issues as elsewhere in the country, but capacity and speed within the borough are lacking. So we've done a huge amount of work to increase that over the last 18 months or so. So there's smart technologies, making sure that we're able to use new technologies to reduce social isolation and to support the work of healthcare providers as well. And really embedding sort of digital skills into everything that the council does, including then making sure that our own council staff and members act as digital leaders in the community as well. Really important that we continue to do that. Skills and confidence, I think, is something I've mentioned before, but actually often it's about having the confidence to just press that button, just to try that thing online, see what happens. Generally, you can't break these things. So I think it's through our adult education, through work with schools, really trying hard to impress that across our community. We've also done a huge amount around devices as well. So we gave out devices during the pandemic to school children. We're now continuing that work where we've got social exclusion and economic deprivation, really trying hard to make sure that our families and residents in the borough have the access to what they need. Often we jump to, oh, it's the elderly, it's 65 plus, it's 70 plus that don't involve and engage in technology. I don't think that's true. I think there's a huge range of reasons why people aren't able to be digitally involved. So, and I think that's changed during the last couple of years as well with the pandemic. So what was socially excluding before is very different now. So we're trying to think about this across the piece. And using data across the borough as well to really target our activities. I will share these slides. I'm not going to talk to them in detail, but we, really trying to think about that link between income deprivation and where we've got digital exclusion in the borough. As a borough as a whole, we're generally okay, sort of in the middle, as you can see here, in the blue colouring around digital exclusion. But there are pockets in the borough of the pinks and the reds that have a higher likelihood of being digitally excluded, and that ties in with the sort of social deprivation figures as well. So lots of work taking place around that. I've talked about some of the stuff that we've done already. We've got working hard with community fibre, our master wayleave work, making it easier for fibre providers to engage in the borough. We've seen numbers of connections massively increase. So that's fibre directly to the premises rather than the green cabinet in the street. And there's also a lot of social tariffs and free fibre that we're working on giving out as well. So a huge amount there. So lots of activities taking place, and I think there is a role for local businesses in really trying to help us in that, whether that's donating refurbished laptops, helping donate laptops, helping donate time into working and being part of the digital champions program that we have across the borough as well. So a huge amount of opportunity. We've also got our digital strategy. So this is our chief exec, Niall Bolger. So again, really trying to embed that digital, that data, that technology into the transformation work that the council's doing, being innovative where we can, leading to improve outcomes for residents, borough as a whole, businesses included, and obviously within that to be as efficient and effective as possible. So our digital strategy vision is around using digital to create connected, inclusive communities supported by innovative and digitally optimized services. And again, you'll see some of the things there that we're committed to doing. So skills in the workforce, devices in the workforce as well, making sure that we're thinking about the next set of skills that the borough needs, as well as that connectivity as well. This is our one page for strategy before I'll sort of finish off. Under the corporate plan, we have 6 ambitions for Hounslow, as you'll see at the top here: greener, cleaner, thriving, healthier, safer, livable. So this sets out the digital strategy and what digital is capable of providing the organisation and therefore the borough around green, around using data more effectively and efficiently across the different areas of the organisation. And making sure that we're able to use new technologies coming up in safe, secure, ethical manners as well. We've got to have that trust in our community, and that community has to trust us. So there's a huge amount of activity taking place around all this as we work in the borough as well. So thinking about some of our smart place work taking place over the next 18 months or so. So we got our digital strategy approved the eve of the first lockdown, so a couple of years ago now, and we've done a huge amount of work in that, and some of that work's been recognised as well. We were finalists in the Municipal Journals Awards for Digital Transformation last year, pipped at the post, but I think it shows that the work that we're doing in Hounslow and trying to be residents, community focused, and making sure that we're using the tech in sensible ways that's a good recognition of that. So there's a huge amount of activities there that we've done, putting in the basics as well. It's really important that we get those basics right, to give us that firm foundation for that change that we need to do. I will stop talking now. I could talk forever about this. It's really, really important topic for the borough. We do blog quite a lot about all this as well. So if you want to find out more of what we're doing, we've got the hounslow.digital blog site as well, where we give lots of updates on all the work that we're doing. So thank you. I'll a whistle-stop tour of some of the work that we've been doing, but hopefully sets out a bit of the framework for what we're doing. Sally.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. I've got a few questions, but I'm going to leave them to the end, if that's okay. Right. Our next speaker is Michael Keane, who is the Business Development Director of AJAR Technology. AJAR provide end-to-end integrated technology solutions to the public sector. They work with Heathrow and the Metropolitan Police, amongst others. Michael, over to you, please.
Good morning, everybody. I will share my screen too. There we go. Yep, good morning again, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar this morning. Thank you for the intro, Sally. As Sally said, we're a technology systems integrator. We're based in the borough of Hounslow by Gillette Corner. And we have been operating, our business has been operating for 17 years so far. So I'm not as detailed as Mark in terms of talking about a specific digital strategy. Obviously, Mark has got his digital strategy, but I do cover strategy in my slides here. And we're talking, I'm coming at it from a perspective of technology strategies can sometimes come across as complex subjects. We have, various terminologies that can be used, and they mean different things to different people. And sometimes there's some language barriers depending on your technology understandings. Essentially, the strategies come down to a set of objectives and the principles that you are setting out for your business or your organization, and the tactics that you're going to rely on to implement technologies to the benefit of your business. The context of those strategies will be different according to every organization and according to the objectives you're trying to set out. And obviously the size of your business will mean the strategies can be as simple as the one pager that Mark put up. And if you're large organizations, they may be more complex. I've just selected one of them, and this is really focusing more around the security side of things, which is a relevant theme for us because we do a lot of security for our clients, and it's a big topic at the moment across small, medium and enterprise organizations about how security is implemented within the organization. But I just wanted to draw attention to the left-hand side of the slide, which is something that everybody should be, I suppose, considering from the outset on any of these strategies. That to implement any of these strategies, there's multiple sort of cogs in the process to achieve from start to implementation. And how are you going to resource all of these different skill sets that are required for implementation of any technologies within your organization? We may have consultants, we may have designers, you may have architects, you may have systems integrators, you're going to have the technology vendors, And then there's the ongoing maintenance of those technologies once they're in. And just within the security umbrella, I've just put a couple of examples of different technologies that, may feature within that umbrella heading. We're talking about control centers. Again, referring back to Mark's slide there a few minutes ago, he mentioned the use of CCTV and smart technologies. That's likely to be going back to a control center somewhere where the video feeds are going to be analyzed. We have Joe talking in a minute about cybersecurity, so I won't go into into the detail of that. And then we have analytics. Analytics is a big subject these days. Whether you're on your web browsers, but also in organizations, about how you can utilize the data that's coming into your organization to the benefit of your business. So I just thought since we're talking about a community sort of theme of digital festival and digital transformation, we have some specific community use cases of new security technologies that have been implemented for the benefit of the community. This is a case study for a housing association in the Greater Manchester region. They provide accommodation of a range of accommodation for 9,000 residents, and that is a variety of accommodation types. We're talking from general housing through to sheltered housing, refuges. But their estate also covers places like the car parks, and the locations of these accommodations covers a variety of locations. Some are what would be high risk areas, maybe more susceptible to crime of all sorts, and some will be of lower crime but just need the general security. Prior to the project that we have delivered for them, they had non-standardized technologies across the estate, and the residents were, for example, the car parks. Some of the car parks, the residents wouldn't use the car parks because there was no CCTV coverage on them, and it was high crime rates. What we have done is we've enabled a digital transformation of their CCTV systems by using modern versions of CCTV, which are centralized using cloud technologies. Cloud technologies, everybody's using apps on their phones. They're all hosted in cloud services. We've taken away sort of the risk of hardware at these very disparate locations, and centralized it for the housing association to be able to access it remotely, and we've been able to implement the CCTV into these high risk locations, examples such as the car parks. The benefit of this is now the residents are actually using those car parks that were empty a year ago are now actually in full use. Feedback from the residents is they can see the benefits. So that's one community use case in the sort of the housing environment. And I have one more use case, which is a digital transformation of the CCTV systems for the London Ambulance. Similar scenario to the housing association, in that we're talking about many locations spread across a large area. We have now implemented over 800 cameras for the London Ambulance Service, and this is their strategy was to again centralize their video feeds in a secure manner, in a loss prevention sort of objective. Reason being, there was a high rate of theft taking place across their sites. For example, the fuel stations, everybody knows the price of fuel these days. There was the likes of all sorts of people taking advantage of fuel stations that were unmonitored, and essentially filling up their vehicles for free. So the benefits of this, implementation of new technologies for the London Ambulance Service is massive sort of loss prevention. So they're able to achieve, return on their investment quite tangibly, because if we can reduce the theft, then the financial benefits repay it pretty quickly. Whilst we're talking about new technologies, I thought it'd be sort of important to draw attention to the fact that there is a lot of attention on new technologies, whether we're talking about, CCTV, digital technologies in general. It's very exciting, it's very glamorous, it's in the news in one way or the other on a daily basis. However, that technology is very forward facing, and within organizations, councils, schools, police, ambulance, whoever the organization is, there's a lot of legacy technologies that are going to be in existence for some years to come. And that's because they are a fundamental technology that underpins a lot of the operations of an organization today. Things like the IT networks may not be, front and center, but everything we're talking about operates across the IT networks. So what we've seen in our experience and some of the trends is that there's a lot of attention within organizations to implement new technologies and the benefits that they bring. But we have to make sure that people do not neglect the maintenance of the legacy technologies. Otherwise, the organizations are liable to security vulnerabilities, but also performance vulnerabilities where some resilience is maybe lost because of the maintenance isn't upkept. So the takeaway from that is we're not going to be going around rip and replacing a full technology estate within any organization in one go. It has to be managed and maintained with equal sort of attention. Couple of insights. The main one I'm going to focus on here is the 5G technologies. 5G as a technology really was available, I'm going to say at least 7 years ago. I remember having my first conversation about 5G in 2015. It's still not rolled out, across mainstream day-to-day use cases. So if we're talking about 2015 to today, that's 7 years, and we're still rolling it out. We're going to see the rollout of new technologies continuing, for years to come, and it will end up being, with the release of new technology being more frequent than it used to be, it's going to become pretty much, the norm. Mark has also talked about, Hounslow's strategy. The UK government vision is by 2025. There's going to be an overhaul of the digital services provided by the government with an intent to provide better services for everybody. And that is the end of my slide. I hope I kept within the time frame.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm reading the last bit of your slide. By 2030, the UK will fail to realise almost 9% of technology, media and telecoms. It's interesting reading. Thank you very much indeed, Michael. And also congratulations to AJAR for winning an award at our Business Awards last Thursday. Well done. Thank you. Our next speaker is Joe Brianti from JB Consulting. JB Consulting is a new member of the Chamber, but I've known Joe for many a year. So Joe, do you want to stop sharing, Michael? Brilliant. Joe, you're muted, but I'm sure you know that. Mouse problems. We'll get there.
You always need to feed a mouse with some cheese,
Yes. No, not working. almost there. Shall we go? Here we go. Brill. Well done.
Eureka!
Over to you, Joe.
Okay. Now we practiced this before the meeting.
We did.
And, hey, look at this. Right. Okay. There, I'm in. So, and I think I'll just get rid of the automated that. So, hi everybody, I'm Jo Brianti from JLB Business Consulting. Just a very quick introduction to me. I'm an accredited data protection officer. I'm qualified in European law, and that also covers UK data protection legislation. And this slide shows just some of the organisations that I've worked with over the past 18 months. I'm going to keep my presentation very, very short and sweet today. And I want to just talk about the key considerations that you need to think about when you're choosing tech to implement into your business. So the first thing that you need to consider is the supplier. A lot of us will look at a supplier and say, are they competent? Can they deliver the service that I'm looking for? But I'm also suggesting that you look at their reputation, particularly cloud providers. If you're choosing something like email marketing software, are you choosing something that's reputable, or is it something that's, run by a small company that may not be very secure? What is their GDPR awareness? What is their level of compliance? If you're working with a supplier that's not aware of GDPR, not up to date on their compliance practices, the likelihood is that the service they provide to you will put your business at risk. Look at the security standards that they're operating within. Look for sort of ISO accreditations. Look for Cyber Essentials. There are a variety, and I could go on a long time about those, but the key things you're looking for are how they are protecting the data that you put into the cloud systems. And look at their policies and their processes. The privacy policy on their website should make it very, very clear what they do to protect the data in your business that you are trusting to their technical solutions. If it's not clear, ask the question. If you're not happy, be very, very careful about where you're storing your data. The hosting location is really very important. From a GDPR perspective, both EU and UK, and there are two slight variations because we're talking post-Brexit world here. But you need to think about where your data is going. In a cloud environment, it could end up anywhere over the world, and you really need to think about the regulations in terms of the international data transfer. Ideally, you want your data to be stored in either the UK, the EU, or the European Economic Area, because they are all approved countries from both the UK and the EU perspective. The US, the majority of the cloud providers host data in the US. It is not an approved country. It doesn't have an adequacy arrangement with either the UK or the US, the EU. And as a result, you need to make sure that you're taking additional protections around your data if you're using US-based hosting. There are other countries that provide hosting arrangements, but you have to be really very careful about those. So for instance, a location that's often used is India. Again, it doesn't have adequacy, and there's also a really bad reputation for India and Pakistan, sadly, about data leaks and data breaches. So you do have to be really careful if there's any hosting there. Then you need to look at the technical sort of environment. What's the backup process? How can you access a backup if data in your system fails or there's some other issue? Linking into sort of the security accreditations here, but you also want to look at the security and the controls around who in that organization is going to have access to your data. So for example, with a cloud system, they're going to have system administrators who will be able to override any security rights and access that you put in place. How do they vet those people? How do you know that, you know, not just anybody works in their organization? So you need to understand a little bit about perhaps the controls that they've got in place around the access to their storage servers and those kinds of things. What happens when software is updated in the system? How is that process tested? You know, I worked with an organization recently where a piece of software was updated and it hadn't gone through a proper staging process. It was put onto the live environment and they had a data incident because it wiped out a whole block of archived data, which we needed to work hard to recover. Potentially that could, in some situations, be a reportable incident that you need to speak to the ICO about. So you do need to understand what that technical kind of management of their environment is. And also you need to understand both from your own perspective as a business owner, but also from the sort of tech supplier and the systems about the risk management and how they are doing things like data protection impact assessments to assess the impact of working with that piece of technology in relation to integration with other systems. The next thing you need to think about is your data management. Data will have a life cycle within your organization. There will be the point where it's collected, it's a new prospect, somebody signed up for your newsletter, you've gone to a show and you've collected all these business cards, so you have data that you're going to put into a CRM. Think about how easy it is to use that software to segment for things like archiving at the end of the life cycle. If it's an email marketing tool or a marketing automation tool, how easy is it for you to automate things like re-engagement, which then flags for data that you can delete or at end of life, at the end of sort of, for example, the classic one is you have to retain data for 7 years in some circumstances. How do you know at the end of 7 years which data you can flag for deletion? And are you able to flag it so that there's a manual intervention to check things? These are some of the things that you need to think about within your sort of databases. The data retention is a key element. GDPR doesn't specify what the data retention period is, but you need to understand the life cycle of data within your business and decide appropriate retention policies based on those, and also compare that to legal obligations such as the Finance Act, HMRC, company law, and those kinds of things. And finally, when you're considering choosing technical solutions, top software in your business, you need to think about communication from the supplier, the software provider. What is their management of data incidences and breaches about? How will they communicate with you? Remember that if you're putting soft data into a tool and there's a data breach at their server farm, they should be notifying you, because you need to know whether you have to notify your clients. So for example, if you are taking payments, you're storing bank details, credit card details, if there's a data breach in the server and your clients are included in that, you are obliged to notify the ICO and every single one of your clients, just in case they are impacted. So if you're not made aware by the software company, how can you complete your legal obligations under GDPR to support and manage your clients who may be at risk because there's been a data breach of their credit card? Okay, so for me, those are the key considerations when you're choosing technology, and that's all I pulled together for you for today, because you can go down a huge rabbit hole with GDPR and tech. So if you've got any questions, you can email me direct or ask in the forum here. Okay.
Thank you very much, Jo. Gosh, as it's complicated, isn't it? I saw Mark grinning at one stage. Yes, going down the rabbit hole. Yeah, no, yeah, it is incredibly complicated. But thank you so much for hopefully putting us on the right lines. Our next speaker is Silvia del Corso, who's the founder of PinkSEO. Silvia, well, and I think the name gives it away what you're going to be speaking about. So please, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And it's lovely to be part of this digital panel, because it's great to have a moment to just discuss some technical things. And in particular, I would like to dedicate my little bit of time to giving a little bit of education around topics that can help business owners in general, how to approach their digital presence. So let's start talking a little bit about who I am and why I'm talking about digital. This is my second business, digital business that I'm running. I'm originally from Italy, as you can clearly tell from the accent. And back there, we used to have a digital agency doing all things digital, launching websites and apps and social media, email marketing, any sort of online marketing. Now here, back to West London, currently based in Isleworth, launched this time a pure play SEO agency. Specialization, I believe, is key, particularly in this industry and market. Now, today, I'd like to share with you some considerations around digital presence. For your business, the thing to consider is that we often make the sort of mistake of thinking of our websites as something that we statically show to people. As if they were a business card. There is a complete difference in what you can achieve, because your website is supposed to be fetching you business, new clients, new leads, new opportunities, incoming contacts through your contact form, sales, things that can only happen if the site can be found on Google. And this is what we are going to be talking about today. The main reason why we're talking about this is that as users, we all trust search engines. That's the primarily place where we go and search for information. And having a presence there is something that immediately conveys this sense of trust in a business. Because if you manage to find them there, it means they're real, it means they're reputable. We know how strict and selective Google is and how challenging it can be to be ranking up there. So having a digital presence, having an online presence there is already a matter of discerning who can be seriously taken into consideration. And obviously, it will give you more opportunities to generate business. There are possibilities of being found via paid advertising. There is a quicker, a faster sort of results that you can get, but it does not generate the same level of trust. We know that people 70–80% of the times tend to click on normal results than on ads. As users, we know we do that because the ad is something that's been artificially created for us. A result, an organic result is something that's there for us to choose. So the way we interact is generally clicking more on normal results. Now, PPC as paid advertising on Google, as I said, is something faster that you can achieve because SEO, search engine optimization, search engine organic rankings, they will be yours to keep in the years to come, but they take some time to be created. You can consider 6 to 12 months on average to get there doing some solid work. And I will very quickly give you the main features for that. In the meantime, if you need to start generating leads, paying for ads is something that you can consider, but you need to take into consideration that it's something that only will keep you up there as long as you keep on paying. As soon as you stop paying, you disappear from those listings. And it does burn budgets quite quickly because every single click will burn some of your budget. So you need to be aware that it's something that can be done, should be done, particularly in the beginning, but it's a sort of short-term strategy. And the main difference is that one is an outbound sort of marketing, paid advertising, online, organic rankings is an inbound. Outbound is when you interrupt something that somebody else was doing. It's the cold call that you receive. It's the cold email that you receive. It's the ad that comes to you and you weren't actually searching for that. It's all around who wants to advertise. The inbound is something that comes to you when you're actually searching for that. So you have an interest for something and you search and you find things. So who ends up being found was already in your network, in your radar. Google, the way they can generate these sort of results is extremely difficult because if you consider that every hour since basically since we started this meeting, 10,000 new websites were created. Every day, every minute, there is new websites being created and we are getting closer to having 2 billion sites. So just consider how difficult it is for Google to choose those top 10 ranking sites. And you know how the saying goes, if you got a place, a safe place to hide a dead body, it's the second page of Google, because people won't go there searching for stuff. So lots of competitors, only 10 positions. It is difficult, but you just have to set realistic, attainable goals. So know what you can go for, particularly if they are local terms, local sort of visibility that is achievable. Now, there's plenty of people delivering SEO in plenty of different ways. And I just would like you to be aware of what is being offered when you hear somebody offering that, because there is the quickest way to consider SEO is 3 letters, 3 sides, 3 main elements. It needs to consider coding, content, and links. So the code of the site, how it's done, it needs to really comply with what Google is expecting and be easily scannable and easily foundable. Content and all the words contained, they need to really match what people are searching for, but in a way that helps the user, not the search engine. So no manipulation, that's never really helpful. And links are third-party referrals from somebody else's website, and everyone that you get is like a token of trust to your site. It's like a referral to your business, a recommendation to your business. In the end, it grows the domain trust that Google will have on your site. It's like getting many recommendations for the same person. In the end, you end up trusting them. It's a very complex field. The thing is that you need to be aware of what people are offering you, because you may find very often people offering only one side of the triangle and pretending it's the whole thing. So It's not just optimizing articles and posts. It's not just selling you backlinks and the daily emails that you receive, sometimes offshore, telling you tomorrow you'll be on the first page of Google. Be aware that are generally scammers. It's a matter of taking holistically everything into consideration and testing, improving, and measuring. You can do this in two ways. As a business owner, particularly when you're a startup, you will want to do it in-house. Try to do it on your own with your DIY tools. What does this entail? This entails that you will save money, definitely. And you will learn stuff on your own. And I really recommend, even if then you get to a point in which you can finally outsource it to somebody else and you can focus on what you're best at doing, always keep an eye on how things work. Always have a back knowledge of how this system works. So that when you're outsourcing things to somebody else, you know what they're doing, how they're doing, and you can have a glance and you can have an idea of what things work. The cons, if you're doing it on your own, obviously you need to learn quite a lot of things, and they could be technical in most cases, and it takes a while actually to get that sort of knowledge. If you're outsourcing it, the process that you can forget about that as much as possible, and you just dump it on somebody else and they will give you results and they will give you their actions. You need to invest and you need to consider, as I was saying, that this is a slow process. Once you get those rankings, they are yours to keep for years generally. But you need to factor in about 1 year of ongoing activity. There's no one-off. It doesn't really work. If you're doing it on your own, you will want to get training or somebody consulting you. If you're doing on outsource somebody else, then you need support. We really want to help local businesses out. So this is a QR code that you can scan and you can get a complete audit. And that is not just a thin thing, it's like 20 pages fully detailed on how are things like on your site, and 1 hour then guiding you through what should be done and what should not. So we really, really want to have people, businesses get into digital a little bit easier. And this is a checklist in which you can immediately see where you're scoring and what is still outstanding, what still should be done. This is a little bit of what we do, so how we can support. We're an agency, 6 employees, all UK based. We can support with regular plans, we can support with one-off actions every now and then, whenever you may need. Little bit of context, even if you just would like to pick our brains, we promise we'll reply every single inquiry. And that's it for me. Stop sharing now.
That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Sylvia. Thank you.
Wonderful,
Alan.
Sylvia, thank you very much.
Yes, Alan, over to you.
Okay, so I've been writing down some questions as we've been going along. So good for you, Sylvie. You were the last one, so I was the last lot of questions to ask you. First of all, what a wonderful offer to do a checklist. Do you think you could copy and paste that in the Q&A so people watching can pick it up from there?
It's a long thing because it's divided into things that you can do on your own. We divided it into things that you can DIY and things that you may need to ask somebody to. So,
the email address that you put
definitely
on there,
I'll put it here in the chat.
Okay.
That's for sure.
So I've.
Yes, that's the link for the audit.
I scanned your code. And we're about to have a meeting after this to have a talk about our new brand launched website. So once we've done that, we'll then come over to you to have a free check. Thank you.
Do.
Maybe we'll stick an advert on the bottom, checked by Sylvia. you've built your new website. You're one of 10,000 websites that day that's been made. Wonderful stat. Thank you. And you're starting to see increased traffic coming to you. Great, Eureka, people are coming, but then the bad boys start coming. And you start getting the wrong traffic, and you start getting people who are fishing or spear fishing, and you need a bit of protection. So we come over to some of the comments that Joe made. And in the UK, now that we've left the EU, are more of our data centers and storage servers outside the EU, or are they a mixture of EU and UK?
It's a mixture, and also with some software providers, you can actually change and manipulate where your data is stored. So, for example, if you're using Google suite of tools, you can actually specify the data storage region. Organizations that are using things like Amazon servers, you can select European Union or UK storage. It's just a case of asking the question, where is my data being hosted? Where is it going to? And
are there questions you can ask about how secure those data centers are? We were all shocked when we saw what happened to a certain airline whose data center got hacked at Hatton Cross only a couple of years ago, and they had a huge data breach.
Yeah, and you should be asking these questions, but the key thing is, and this is where we have a huge problem with things like privacy policies, because what happens with small businesses is they get great websites built by website designers who put a template privacy policy on there, and then they think, yep, that's a tick in the box. What they never do is look at the privacy policy to assess whether that actually reflects what they do in their business, right? And you'll find that some of these tech companies do exactly the same, but the privacy policy should, if you are following the letter of the regulation, tell people visiting your website what your business does to protect their data in all elements. So if you're going to select a piece of software, a CRM system, by going to their privacy policy, it should tell you, where are we sending your data? Am I the data controller or the processor? What security am I putting in place? Now, you will find that some organizations will have a subsection which they call the technical policy, which then tells you what security standards they're adhering to and all of those things. So it's linked, but you do need to be able to see that. If it's not there, ask them. And if you're not happy with the answers, then you need to think very carefully about whether you put your faith in that organization. The caveat here and the reminder is, as the business owner, if there's an incident or a breach, that you are the person who has to speak to the ICO, and you are the person who then has to go and speak to your customers and your clients. So it's your business reputation that is at risk, not the software provider potentially.
Okay, so boiling it all down to, let's, for example, talk about this recorded Zoom session.
Yeah.
Where is this being backed up on the cloud?
I don't know what your settings are, so I can't answer that question.
We have a choice then, do we? It could be China.
You can do, yes. I mean, it depends. When I record a Zoom call, it records to my desktop, and I then immediately, it's rendered, load it into my SharePoint, and my SharePoint is UK hosted. So I can tell you what I do in my business. I don't know without having the discussion and looking at your settings to tell you what you do. But potentially, absolutely, if you save something and you don't know where it's going and you don't know what the settings are, it could go anywhere. It's unlikely to go to China. It's more likely to go to the United States, but yes.
Okay. So, Mark, you're smiling broadly here. The council do all of their calls on, well, they don't do any of their recorded calls on Zoom, do they?
No, we use Teams. We're Microsoft House in the main, and then some of the council meetings are then you use YouTube as well. So again, control around where they're held. But I was sort of reflecting and sort of smiling there that actually this isn't something, and I think it's come up a couple of times, Michael said it as well, this isn't something that gets done on day one of implementing a new thing. It's something that needs to be regularly thought about, isn't it?
Yeah.
And reviewed, you know, once a year, once every 6 months, whatever sort of feels right. And often we move on to the next shiny thing, don't we? But actually just embedding information governance, GDPR, cybersecurity into everything that we do, not just as a council, but local businesses listening here, is so important.
Yeah.
And it was a thing that came up from everybody, I thought, today.
There is an obligation as well within GDPR that it's regularly reviewed, and it's called accountability. And it was an introduction, because there is a recognition that, you know, we do the shiny thing, as you say, and so without a show of hands, how many of you have reviewed your GDPR policies, processes since 2018? We had huge amounts of noise about you've got to be ready, you've got to be ready. Everybody did it and went, that's that, tick the box. But actually, with the accountability requirement, you should be doing the minimum annual review of what you do within your business. Are you still compliant today? What's changed today, where you are today versus where you were in 2018, 19, 20? You know, we went through the pandemic. How many of us went from trading in person to online? Has your privacy policy reflected that change? Just as a very simple.
So I'm very glad to see, Joe, with your comment, Sally wrote something down and smiled and then flew out with her lips.
GDPR policy, question mark.
That's another job I've got to do.
Yeah, very so.
So Michael, to not ask you a question, and would be rude, you digitalise a lot of business, in short, from small to incredibly large. Do you prompt them a bit to ask these questions internally, and do you do stress tests on their systems and make sure people aren't answering the emails that they shouldn't be answering?
Yeah, so when you talk about stress testing, I can slightly diverge away from the cyber side of things, because cyber is part of it. Cyber underpins, you know, a lot of the technology systems that go into any organization. But a lot of what we do is more of the operational tech. And when we're connecting, you know, different locations, so you've got a location in London, location in Manchester, and location in Scotland, for example, you have got a lot of communication that's taking place across an IT network. So you have the stress testing of the IT network, you have the cyber security element that is protecting all of that data. But then also what we have to consider in the stress testing is what happens if a piece of equipment was to fail. Will that organization then still be able to function? And that's something that not every organization thinks about. They think, okay, we can put in this tech, we've got a great way of operating, but sometimes it's an afterthought. And that's where we come in, is, okay, well, should something fail here, this is the impact assessment on your organization. Can you continue to operate as an organization if that function was to not be available to you? And the other impact that has then on the ongoing maintenance side of things, because if you have a highly critical system with a single point of failure, maintenance will be very expensive, because you are paying for a rapid response, whereas you could spend another few £1,000s to have, you know, a failover. In the event of a failover, it automatically kicks over, and the impact to the users is minimal to nothing, and the organization stays operating as usual.
It's I must admit, I'm going to come back a little bit to Mark here to give a compliment, frankly. We've all seen in our lifetimes, more Sally and myself, I think, in our lifetimes, Hounslow transform from being an industrial factory borough to being a smart city borough, going through a huge amount of digitalization. And with all of that comes a huge amount of cyber risks with that migration of thought process. And, you know, what a clever idea. I don't know where you came up with the name from, Mark, but having a genius bar is such a good idea to go along to test things and to give people a chance to answer those questions. There's no chance of any IP issues with that, is there?
We keep it quiet, very stolen. Very stolen from Apple.
Okay, I'll go and do the pear to eat today then.
But it is good. It's about equipping your staff with everything that they need to do these things digitally, to do these things in different ways, and that's what we're trying to do in the borough is make things digital, but about people. So not about tech. It's all about people and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve across the place. That's what it's about, people.
It was interesting.
Well said. I just wanted to leave a final comment from myself and then hand back to Sally to say it's great that people learn how to build websites and learn all about SEOs and let people know you're there. And Sylvia's a great person to get in touch with and give some business to. But you then have to watch out for the wrong people coming to your website and make sure you're properly protected. So wear a belt and braces these days. There's a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of people, especially from Eastern countries, who seem to be increasing their cyber attacks on lots of small companies. We only had some spear phishing going on in the office yesterday. Twice. Sally made a phone call to the company in Ealing, and they said yes, it's all spam. I don't know where they got it from, but you know, you're being targeted. And having some great companies like AJAR and Hounslow Council moving ahead with what they're doing is really good. Mark, how do you do stress testing on your different websites that you have, and you know, how do you make sure that everything from those is properly working and that there's no leakages or that there's no weaknesses on there for people to leave bugs behind to listen and understand what you're doing in Hounslow Borough?
As I sort of mentioned earlier on, I think embedding cybersecurity, information governance, GDPR into everything that we do regularly, make sure that we're always got this at the top of our minds. We also have external penetration testing, it's called, to people to try and break us and find the bugs so that we can fix them. So that happens on a very regular basis throughout the year. So trying to do that as regularly and often as possible. And then I think it's about training. So we do lots of training in the organisation, lots of awareness, so that we don't get that person clicking on that email with that link that causes all sorts of problems. And it's relentless. It's absolutely relentless. And as soon as you think you've trained everybody and you've done it, you need to do it again, because there'll be something else. There'll be a new thing. Yep.
Over to you, Sally.
That reminds me, we were talking to a very large company just recently, and they set their own sort of phishing exercises up to sort of try and, you know, not trick their employees, but educate them. Yeah. And it was fascinating, the stories that were told. I'm aware of the time. Just very quickly, you talked about old laptops and old phones that the council recycle. Mark, where do people take them? If you see what I mean, where? Yeah. How do they do that?
Easiest thing probably is to drop me an email and we can have a conversation and make those arrangements. But yeah, really keen to see what we can do in that. Absolutely.
Great, because I do remember during the lockdown, our local MP, Seema Malhotra, was running something to get laptops, you know, into schools through her charity, Heart of Hounslow, I think. So yeah, would love to do that. There was also a question from one of our members, and she is just a member, they've just joined this very minute, the Kidwise group, and they were wanting to have advice on how to start online Zoom lessons for their obviously education business, Kidwise. As I say, I'm aware of time. I'm going to put Samara in touch with, we will be in touch with Samara, and also Joe, I would ask you regarding GDPR. So Samara, we will be in touch with you. All right, so you are not forgotten. I think that wraps it up. It's 7 minutes past 11. Alan, you wanted to mention quickly about the Oman Tech event on the 19th of January.
Sally, you've just done it.
Yes, okay. Oman Tech event, 19th of January at UWL.
I'll add a bit more to that. So we're doing it jointly with University of West London. We've got the Secretary of State coming along to the event itself. It's all afternoon. One of the key focus points on there is data, digital, cyber, and IT. They're looking to build a lot of data centers over there. It's a secure country. Cost of electricity is negligible, delivered through solar power, and it's something worth going along to learn a lot more and see how the links are being built between us in West London and Hounslow and the Kingdom of Oman. Have a great afternoon. And if I don't speak to you before, is it too early to say season's greetings?
No, because I
didn't say Merry Christmas.
No, I'm just going to very quickly before we go. We are holding the Fuller's Brewery tour and then a curry at the George in Devonshire on the 8th of December. Please do. There's a small ticket price. Please do book your tickets. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, everybody, for being here this morning. And yeah, Merry Christmas.
Well done, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.